comes, and a bit later Mother comes. And if you think Dad's had a hard day, Mother's has been much worse. And she throws something into the microwave and feeds the kids and encourages them to go to bed. And then she drags herself down to the bedroom and collapses on top of the bed. And Dad has fallen asleep in the easy chair. And there he'll spend most of the night. Now, in that family, there are problems. Problems between husband and wife. Problems so insignificant that if 5 minutes were spent, the problems would be solved, settled, ended. But they're too busy. They don't talk. And the problems grow. At least in their minds they grow. And they get larger and larger. And they're too big to talk about. And they're too big to talk around. And so they bring in a third party, the pastor, the marriage counselor. And probably now it's too late. Collapse of the home. Kids who don't know where they belong and feel like they don't belong anywhere. Angry at both parents for splitting up and often feeling like they caused it. The fourth reason for the collapse of society and the great increase in crime and violence, the collapse of the church. When the home falls, the church is soon to follow. The church is made up of homes. The home is the base unit. And the devil knows that he doesn't have to go around setting fires to churches. All he has to do is destroy the home. And that he's done with great aplomb. The church begins to fall apart. And in order to save the church, they decide we need to have more socials. We need more pancake breakfasts. What we need is a dance hall that would hold our young people. What we need is a more lively worship service. Bring in the rock and roll band and let's get down between the aisles. Let's do it in church. And so many churches finance their church program with a movie or with the bingo game. And folks don't give out any sense of stewardship at all, but rather they put $2 in the bingo game in the hope they'll get back 7 or 10. So many folks tell me these days, Lyle, I go to church from one week to the next, praying God that I'll get something, anything, something from God's Word that can see me through the next week. My spiritual cup is so empty, I need some promise from God that'll lift me up and hold me up. And I get to church, and what do I get? A cup of coffee and a donut, and if I'm real lucky, a little dish of spiritual pablum. But you folks are here night after night after night because you're not getting pablum. Here we believe and love and preach the Word of God. And there's power here. There's strength here. There's encouragement here. The collapse of the church certainly parallels the rise in crime and violence. Now there comes a question finally. As crime and violence increases, especially amongst the young, as more and more homes break up and more divorces are granted, as more things are stolen from the stores and from the individual homes, why don't the preachers say something about it? Why on worship morning doesn't every pulpit become a second Sinai? Why don't the preachers stand up and speak loudly for all to hear? Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Thou shalt not. Why don't the preachers preach about what's going on? I'm going to tell you now why they don't. Because when the preacher, in his preaching of God's 10 rules for happy living, comes to commandment number 4, it says, remember which day? The Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days to labor, but the 7th day. And by the way, dears, tonight I need to say to you, if the Sabbath were a principle, you could keep any day of the week. Take off Wednesday this week or Tuesday next week. If it's only a principle, it does not matter. The Sabbath is not a principle. It is a day, the 7th day of the week. That's the one that God blessed and hallowed and sanctified. And that's the one that He promised to come to and bring a special presence and a special blessing. It does make a difference. If I lined up 7 women here on the platform tonight, and only one of them is my wife Peggy, would it matter which one I took home? It makes a difference. The Sabbath is not a principle, it is a day, the seventh day of the week. But when the preacher comes down through the Ten Commandments and comes to commandment number 4, it says, remember the Sabbath day, Saturday, to keep it holy. And now the preacher's in violation, and the church is standing against God's law. And so to get around it all now, the preacher says, well, now look, folks, 10 Commandments are all done away. That was for the Old Testament. This is the grace age. We're a new covenant church. Now, you ask him after that sermon, Pastor, am I clear? Am I understanding you correctly? Is it okay now that we're in the New Testament age that I steal your car? Is that what you're suggesting? No, now look, we grace Christians don't steal, no. Is it okay, Pastor, if I have an affair with your wife or your daughter? Is that what you're saying? We're in the grace age? Don't worry about adultery. Oh, now look, we new covenant Christians, we don't commit adultery. You go right down the list. And you'll discover there's only one of the 10 Commandments that he wants to put on the cross, and that is commandment number 4 that says Saturday is the Sabbath. But in order to get it up there, he must put up all 10, and then with spiritual sleight of hand, take down 9 and leave the Sabbath commandment nailed to the cross. And one who says otherwise is a legalist. I alluded to that just a while ago. You know, the accusation from a televangelist whose name you would know, and whose face I see with the regularity. It's kind of like a moon. And it's there with Geraldo and O'Reilly and everybody else, it seems, every time I do a little channel surfing. That's legalism. That idea is righteousness by works, legalism. Now, that same evangelist, when he talks about abortion, says, that's wrong. He should, because we're God's children, and thou shalt not kill. When it comes to homosexuality, that same guy says that is a sin of God. That's breaking one of God's 10 Commandments. That is a sin. You know, folks, that sounds like legalism to me. Tonight, as we conclude, my dears, I appeal to everyone within the sounding of my voice, to this audience, and to those that are watching by way of television. The 10 Commandment law of God fits the crying need of the terminal generation. Those who steal and change price tags in grocery stores need to hear from God's word, thou shalt not steal. And the profane and the blasphemers who think it's cute need to hear, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And the triflers and the promiscuous need to hear again, thou shalt not commit adultery. Who said the commandments are out of date? Thou shalt not. You're made to wear a crown upon your head. Don't live like animals. Thou shalt not. One day I'm coming. We're going to have a trial session here to see if you're safe to take into my kingdom. Don't live that way. Thou shalt not. Let's pray. Ah, dear God, as we see the world collapsing all around us, crime and violence escalating, as we see our own loved ones abused, battered, robbed, raped, help us to realize that to some degree at least we've had a part in it. We've discounted your Decalogue and we've said it's unnecessary and it's out of date, it's old-fashioned, it's for another age. You cry again, as certainly as you did from Sinai. You said, till heaven and earth pass away, nothing is going to be changed in your 10 Commandment law until it's all over. Dear God, see us and help us. We've come to the final court of appeal. To your love and your grace we pray and plead in Jesus' name. Amen.